Hey, mentors, and welcome to our Ed 3110 session, Building and Enhancing New Literacies Across the Curriculum. This time, I'll be sharing to you about Unit 3, the 21st Century Skills, focusing on globalization and education. What is globalization and what is education? And we will be connecting the word globalization and the word education. The course outline for today. So I'll be presenting to you the intended learning outcomes, followed by the characteristics of globalization with the insertion of a video clip, the aspects of globalization and its impact to education, and the presentation or the instruction on accomplishing takeaway entry number 7. What are the intended learning outcomes for this particular module? You At the end of this particular unit, you as pre-service teachers must have explained the different categories of 21st century skills, and you must have demonstrated teaching strategies that promote the development of 21st century literacy skills in a particular subject area. This is anchored upon BTIs 1.1.1, 1.4.1, and 1.5.1, and the course learning outcomes, the 1, 2, and 3. This is actually our topic on globalization and education, is actually part 1 of this particular module, which is 21st century skills. So let's start with what is global education. We know of global education, global learning, the international standards, the global perspectives, and these are all related to what is global education. So the global education extends students' awareness of the world in which they live by opening them to the diverse heritage of human thoughts and action and creativity. We are already in the global community where we have to use international perspectives, that we have to think global, but we have to act local. So I would like you to watch this particular video clip related to the definition and description of what global education is. Global education should prepare students to develop an identity that is cognizant of the reality of global cultural pluralism, equipping them to join others in life. Education systems strive to prepare students to live and work in a world that is increasingly interdependent. A world in which most people will need to collaborate, many supported by rapidly evolving communication technologies, will be deeply embedded in multiple global relationships and will have to figure out their common humanity and their differences. Global education is the new civics of the 21st century because citizenship is embedded in a mesh of relationships that are global as well as local. We think global and we act local. Knowledge, attitudes, values, and skills are the 4 dimensions that are needed to promote comprehensively the principles of international understanding. Knowledge. Attitudes and values. skills. Understanding conflicts like religious warfare, ethnic conflict is an important theme in global education. That is why for UNESCO, peace education is a priority among the pillars of education. Global education is the study of the interface of political, ecological, cultural, and economic systems in the world. To continue, what are the different characteristics of global education to further discuss what global education is? So, the characteristics of globalization that can be linked to education, because globalization is more or less talks about the economics, it talks about the business side. That's why, like for example, we started with the ASEAN integration, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, where these countries which are members of the ASEAN will have to group and create a borderless community, and we go through the world, no, from the Philippines to ASEAN to Asia and to international or to global. So there are four characteristics of globalization that can be linked to education. The first is in relation to education, because all aspects of business, economic issues as to globalization is related. So there is an impact to education. There is a growing understanding that the neoliberal version of globalization, particularly as implemented bilateral, multilateral, international organizations, as reflected in an educational agenda that produces, if not directly imposes, particularly policies for evaluation, financing, assessment, standards, in order for us to globalize the type of education that we have in the country, one financial requirement is teachers training. No, we have to retool teachers. We have to train the teachers in order for them to be ready in teaching global education or to be teachers of the 21st century. And we mean teachers to be in a global community. They have to be equipped with the knowledge, the skills, which are so that they will be ready, no, teaching global education and living in a global community. Another is the evaluation and assessment, the universality of grades. No, the grade in Argao National should be the same. Sorry, it should be the same standards when we for the grades in Manila, no? The or in Cebu City, in Mindanao, in the Visayas, or in Luzon. So there is universality as to assessment and evaluation. So the standards of the international is the standards, and that is we embed or we integrate global perspectives in all lessons. One is we raise the K-12 which is considered as a universal curriculum. Second is economic. The transition of Buddhist forms of workplace education, a rise in internationalized advertising and consumption patterns, a reduction in barriers to goods, workers, and investments across national borders, workers, consumer, and the society. The concept that the world is getting smaller, so we have to create borderless communities around the globe. Na dapat lisod na business, engaging in entrepreneurial activities in the Philippines to the different parts of the world. So that is economic. Borderless communities to business. We have to create borderless communities to students from other countries. And that is education and economic. The third is the political terms. The certain laws of nation state sovereignty or the list of the erosion of the national autonomy and correspondingly a weakening of the notion of the citizen as a unified, a unifying concept, a concept that can be characterized by precise rules, rights, obligations, and status. Sometimes pwede makita, no, or we can experience problems on this, particularly on the politics. So what particular laws, no, which are formulated by the government, no, as an institution in creating borderless communities, or what are the different units in the government to address issues and concerns with globalization, as to education, as to business, as to economic, in the creation of borderless communities for as citizens, or making us to become citizens of the world. So that's political in nature. And in cultural terms, it's a tension between the ways in which globalization brings both more standardization and cultural homogeneity, while also bringing more fragmentation through the rise of locally oriented movements. Okay, as to cultural, so we have to have or as teachers, no, in the educational arena, we have to make or create or avenues where students will have to create cultures not just of their own, but even cultures of the different countries or cultures around the globe. It's cultural, no, nga we expect nga we bring forth standardization and cultural homogeneity, nga we will have only one world, we only have one globe. But again, as to culture, we vary so much, no. Well, sometimes we say nga, to be different is not a deficient, but we have to appreciate. And in cultural terms, the tension comes with the differences that we have, and sometimes we do not appreciate or we do not welcome cultures of other countries, no, and that is a barrier for acculturation. We just go with inculturation, and that is knowing our own culture, but and not knowing the cultures of other countries. No, but we can still have or we can be acculturated by learning the cultures of other people and not forgetting, no, the cultures that we have previously learned or that we have previously acquired. So not like what we call assimilation, where you have forgotten the previous cultures that you have learned, no, and you adapted fully the new cultures that you have acquired. But that's the tension. So these are the characteristics of globalization that can be linked to education. It starts with the issues addressing the education, the training of teachers, the standards, the assessment and evaluation, the curriculum instruction and testing. The second is on the business sector, no, and how about the financial requirements, no, in imbibing the global standards, political, so there must be laws. No, all of these must be translated to laws. The government will have to have programs or framework to address issues and concerns related to globalized education, and of course, the globalization bringing forth more standardization and cultural homogeneity by appreciating cultures around the globe. So what are the different aspects of globalization which are related to the characteristics of globalization linked to education? One is industrial globalization and transnationalization. Now, we open the different sectors of our community in the Philippines to the different parts of the globe. One example is education. We can have online education. We can be student in California. We can be student in one of the big universities in Japan, and we are just physically in the Philippines. No, it's transnationalization, referring to the rise and expansion of multinational and transnational enterprises. In relation to industrial globalization, we have to redesign and reconfigure the curriculum that we have, and that is adapting the international competencies of the different industries, no, so we will not be producing students or graduates who can only be working here, who are only equipped the skills with the knowledge and values needed in the Philippines, but these are the skills, knowledge and values which are needed internationally or globally, and that is industrial globalization. And it's hard. That is why we have to address these issues on the rise and expansion of multinational and transnational enterprises. And there are even Japanese based or Japanese owned factories or corporations and business establishments, no, of American based establishments here in the Philippines. So it's easy for us to connect, to reconfigure, to redesign, reimagine the kind of education that we will have, which will be catering needs of the internet or using international perspectives or global standards. The second is financial globalization. It refers to the emergence of worldwide financial markets and better access to external financing for corporate, national, and subnational borrowers. So financial globalization, okay, financial requirements will always be one of the big problem that we will have in the Philippines when we will be addressing issues and concerns of global education and example for globalized education. But we have the worldwide financial markets, no, in which we have to improve the kind of the economic standing that we have in the Philippines, which can be of which can be of the same level with other countries, with other good countries, no, around the globe. And if financially we cannot have that one, so we can have loan, no, the soft loans, no, in the World Bank, in America, or for countries who are willing to support us financially, to help us financially in order for us to address issues and concerns for globalization here in the Philippines. Third is the political globalization, and that refers to the spread of political sphere of interests to the regions and countries outside the neighborhood of political, the state and non-state actors in the political formation of a global citizen movement. The government as an institution has this it should be the prime mover of improving and re-landscaping the education that we have in the different sectors such as the economic institution, no, the other units, no, in the government and even for private sectors, for us to be at par with other countries in relation to globalization. Informational globalization, we are into a global or digital community. No? The informational globalization refers to the increase in information flows between geographically remote locations. In education, for example, you can let your students to visit America virtually and learn their cultures and to see mga structures known in America or cultures of Japan, of Korea. Though you cannot have field trip physically there, but you can let your students have virtual tour the different countries in your classes, and that in that way they can also appreciate cultures though they have not physically visited Japan, Korea, California, or European countries, for example. But with the communication superhighway, with the internet that we have, and we have students who are internauts and teachers must be internauts, we have to let our students, or we have to let the world, we have to bring the world inside our classroom. And that is related to informational globalization. Cultural globalization, it refers to the growth of cross-cultural contacts. People of the world get a better understanding and appreciation of cultural diversity and plurality. Somewhat no big problem in the Philippines. It's not a big problem in the Philippines because Filipinos are considered to be cosmopolitan. And when we say cosmopolitan, we are citizens of the world. Even physically, no, I think there could be one, two, or more than 10, 100, or 1,000 of Filipinos who are physically there in different parts of the globe for work or for business, for education, or for tour, no, or for in different reasons, or in any reason that they have. So it's that dali ra no nga we can better understand and appreciate that there is differences our cultures, and we can accept, no, that differences towards sustainable development, no, not just in the Philippines but around the globe. The last aspect is globalism. It refers to the universal internationalist impulse that the world is connected. The world is getting smaller and smaller. It refers to the connection between cultures, nations, and peoples. Embodies cultural diffusion, the desire to consume and enjoy foreign products and ideas, adapt new technologies and practices, and participate in world cultures. How about globalization and its impact on education? One big impact is the content of education. There must be upgradation. We have to upgrade the curriculum that we have at present, and the upgradation must be aligned with the international or global standards. The modern advances in information technology have revolutionized, among others, the content of knowledge and the process of educational transaction. That is one big problem, or one of the most pressing problems, and that is adaptability to the use of technology in all processes, procedures, and in the educational in the education. And one good side of the pandemic is teachers are forced to do flexible learning. Teachers are forced to do computer education, or are forced to apply, the technology oriented techniques and strategies in the teaching learning process. And we have to upgrade. After this particular pandemic, we we will not be going back to the pure traditional type of education, but we have to have flexible learning. We should apply continuously blended learning, and that is revolutionizing information technology at hand. Because we live in a digital community, we live in a we have to apply digitized education, and all of the processes of educational transaction will be technology oriented. And that is why we have to upgrade our curriculum. It also needs to be stressed that education should help to engender a new humanism that contains. Again, the second concept under curriculum upgradation is it also needs to be stressed that education should help to engender a new humanism that contains an essential ethical component and sets considerable store of knowledge of and respect for the culture and spiritual values of the different civilizations as a much needed counterweight to a globalization that would otherwise be seen only in economical and technological terms. Now, in upgrading the curriculum that we have in the Philippines, okay, to be humanistic, not to integrate values, not to balance technology, the knowledge and skills in technology, and good values, and the attitude, no, of the people and peoples, no, around the globe in the in appreciating culture and also spiritual values, no, in the different civilizations. That is why, again, in globalization, we are not only focusing here with the knowledge and skills, but basically, there is also values, and that is for the respect of the culture and the spiritual values of the different civilizations. An education for globalization should therefore nurture the HOTS, not the LOTS. And the HOT stands for the higher order thinking skills and the interpersonal skills required for problem finding, problem solving, articulating arguments, and deploying verifiable facts or artifacts to substantiate claims. Now when we have to decide, it must be factual based, it must be knowledge based, it must be experiential based. So nga, we do not just talk, we do not just act, we do not just do this out of no reason at all, but it must be based on verifiable facts or artifacts to substantiate our action or our arguments. The second is productivity orientation. And this is related to industrial productivity or competency-based education. The basic objective of the globalization is to enhance productivity and to make the educational system an instrument in preparing students who can compete in the world markets as productive members of the society. So if you are into the hospitality management, do not just use the standards of the Philippines as far as hospitality management is concerned, but you have to use international or global standards for hospitality management. For education, for example, our the curriculum must be production of world-class teachers and not just local teachers. No, the global teacher teaching competencies must be used. Okay, for industrial technology, you have to produce automotive students using global standards for automotive, no? And also for garments, for drafting, and for other majors or area of specialization. And that is productivity orientation. Kana nga we have to anticipate not just the local scene, but we have to anticipate the international scene. We act local, but you have to think global, the global standards, no, that I am emphasizing. The second is the fallout of globalization, or it could be the barriers, the problems, the issues and concerns. One is internationalization of education. Implicit in the system of globalization is the inevitability of the internationalization of educational system, particularly at the higher education stage. Supposedly, it was this was the proposal nga there must be isa ni our curriculum for commission and higher education for higher education institutions must be internationally based, no, the competencies must be internationally based, but there could be problems as to budget, there could be problems especially for state universities and colleges, but now we are starting to comply with the requirements, and some, no, higher education institutions are endorsed for international ranking, no, nga we have our national university like the University of the Philippines, which is ranked internationally, no, nga dili day bitin ang Philippines as far as education is concerned. Okay? And that's it. But there is a problem. No, it's not just the University of the Philippines na dapat masulod in the international level. No, for like for example, for Cebu Technological University, we are envisioning to be part of the QS ranking, and that is an international meaning if makasulod ta na in the ranking, meaning we have met the minimum requirements for the international based on international or global standards. Okay? Second is the finance-related issues. This will always be a big problem. In order to be part of global configuration, the requirement of funds for social services, including education, will increase manifold. It's not just millions, not just billions, but trillions. No? Because if we want to go with quality, no, it's expensive. The infrastructure, training for teachers, the equipment and facilities, the kind of technology that we have, and it entails financial requirements. Privatization of secondary and higher education as a corollary to the suggestions about reducing public investments in secondary and higher education, a plea has been made to hand over these sectors to private bodies. Like for example, no, kind of Philippine Airlines, sa una that is owned by the government, but now it is gi-privatize na siya. So private person na ang nanag-iya. Kaya kung ari sa government, it entails a lot of budget na makuha sa government. But if i-privatize siya, so bahala na ang private corporations or unit to improve the services or to improve the conduct, no, of that particular of a particular service, no, for education mo nang i-privatize na to siya, but we have state universities and colleges, no, mo bitaw na nga it must be controlled, no, all of the course offerings or program offerings they are regularly monitored by the Commission on Higher Education for board courses or for board programs. If dili sila maka more than the national passing percentage, no, for 3 years, they can be advised for closure, no, for especially for state universities and colleges. Okay, the universities and colleges kuan maguna siya legislated siya ba, balaod, so usually it is the congressmen, no, some there are lots of local universities and colleges, no, nga kanang mga municipal based or they are um legislated, no, balaod siya, and they are mushrooming around the Philippines. So then daghan kaig mga kurso, and walay klaro nga production of quality graduates. That is why that could be a major problem as to global education. So what is the importance of global education and teaching global education. So I will let you watch this particular video clip on the importance of globalization and um, teaching globalization. So in summary, here is what we learned today. The different characteristics of globalization that can be linked to education. And there are four terms: education, economic, political, and cultural terms. The second are the aspects of globalization which are connected to industrial globalization or transnationalization, financial globalization, political globalization, informational globalization, cultural globalization, and globalism. And the last content is related to the impact of globalization to education. And they are content of the education and the fallout of globalization. What is the takeaway for today's session? Globalization is a complex issue, partly because economic globalization is only one part of it, but globalization is greater global closeness, and that is cultural, social, political, as well as economic. In the education sector, we have to be global students. Whether we like it or not, we are already in a global community. We are already in a digital community. And technology is a big word for globalized education. Let us all be global students and global teachers. In this particular module, you will be answering takeaway entry number 7. The notes and the exercises are already uploaded in the fls.ctu.edu.ph. You have to visit that particular site in order for you to download the notes and the exercises. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a good day.